Joe and I have been married for 10 years and we have 2 little boys. And when we first got married, I brought in $80,000 of debt into our marriage and Joe had 0 debt. And so I had to really learn to accept that to be our debt instead of just my debt. And so we worked really hard together to pay that off.
Through God's provision, we were able to pay off that $80,000 6 days before our 2-year anniversary. I remember what it was like to click that mouse button on that final payment, just be like, oh my gosh, we're debt free, we're worth nothing. So after we got out of debt, I was working at a church and we were saving for a home. And my wife would say, I've always got something going on.
One day when Joe came home, we actually had a friend at our house and he was walking past our front window and my friend said, is he carrying a cow? And so he walked through the front door carrying a side of bison leather, and he decided that he was gonna make himself a journal that he saw a friend have and thought it looks cool.
So I started making these leather goods, and it was really just a hobby. You know, I wanted to cover my costs, and from time to time at night or on weekends, working with my hands was a lot of fun.
So 7 years into our marriage, God called us to a new city and a new church. And so Joe started working there. And while we were there, our pastor stood up and shared about some debt that the church had had.
We had come from a church that hadn't had debt before. And so we really felt, man, like that's our debt. Just like in our marriage, it's like, man, that's our debt. That's our responsibility.
And so what that looked like is we were getting ready to do a renovation on our home. And we decided that we were not going to do part of the renovation and that we wanted to give that money to the church to help pay off that debt. The amount of it was larger than what we had ever given before in a year. And this was going to be this one-time gift that we would feel it in ways we've never felt it before.
And it was one of the most joyful, amazing moments ever. And just like, oh my gosh, we just got to take part in what God's up to. And then this is where things started to get crazy, as God can do.
A few weeks later, all of that money that we chose to say no to for the renovation, God provided that back in just a couple weeks.
Almost to the penny, God resupplied everything. A couple tax refunds, and then really that leather business really took off. I got the biggest order I've ever received. Started crunching numbers and thought, oh my gosh, we could do the renovation after all.
And since then, we've only been able to give more and more and more. And it's been so fun to see God provide to give towards missionaries, and we get to give towards helping kids in poverty and tons of other different ways, and faithfully keep giving to our church so that they can continue to carry on the mission that God has for them and for us as well.
It's not our money, it's the Lord's, and He's been kind to give us opportunities and people and situations to give to and be a part of.